Welcome friends, LostScarf here, and it's time for the second rapid fire. So today we have 3 games to offer. We have Siege Saga, the Bonfire, and Abandoned Ship. So Siege Saga is it's a reverse Angry Birds game, and it's pretty fun. It's a $4 game. I like it a lot. It's going to come out for Android and iOS in the future, so if you don't like it for PC, you can look at it for that as well. Then the Bonfire is like a clicker kind of game, mixed with Kingdoms. It's like a dark room in Kingdoms. Interesting concept of a game, $10 game. I'm mixed on it, but I can't stop playing it, so at the same time, it might be worth checking out. And then there's Abandoned Ship, an early access game that is $20 right now, will increase in price going down the line. It is FTL at sea, it literally is. It has a lot of the same concepts and mechanics, basically just using those for a sea situation, and I like it a lot, so I'm recommending these 3 games here. See what you think about them, see if you want to buy them and try them out yourself, and of course give feedback as well. Siege Saga is a $4 game by Playzilla.tk. They're calling it a 2D physics puzzle sandbox, but this game is basically a reverse Angry Birds, and it is perfect at $4. In this game, you build up defenses to defend your king, and sometimes his family members from catapults, cannons, trebuchets, dragons, and more. It's like a phone game in that you get 3 stars, so you gotta protect your king for 1 star, you gotta not use too many defenses for 1 star, and if there's other people to protect, they also count as a star as well, so you gotta worry about that if you want perfect scores. Now, you'll be using wood, steel, stone, ropes, balloons, and other things to set up varying defenses on different terrains. Sometimes the solution is to build a house, other times you need to set up either hanging things to get in the way of the situation, or floating defenses to survive the situation. Or just set up a pile of things on top of your king and pray. That's really what works sometimes. There's over 100 levels, which gives you a great bang for your buck. Also, if you thought, this would be perfect as an Android or iOS game, good news! They're working on that right now. This would be a perfect time waster game while you're on the go or just relaxing on the couch or in bed. It is just a fun game. I enjoyed experimenting with the planks and stones and trying to find the best way to protect my king without accidentally murdering my king. There's a sense of pride and accomplishment when you do get it right, though, which is great. The game does move a bit slow and physics can take some getting used to, but overall, this is a great deal. Like, just $4 for what this thing does. There's a lot to play with. I enjoyed like an hour straight of this game. It does move slow, but when you actually get to do the things, like the first 10 levels are tutorial, after that you're just really defending your king. And there are just fun ideas you can have with it, and I would love if there was like a sandboxing mode to it, or just something more to it, but at $4, it's really good at the price since there's so many levels, so much to do. You get a lot of value out of this one. I recommend it based on how fun it is and the value. It's really good. The Bonfire Forsaken Lands is a $10 game by Sigma Games. Ever heard of a dark room? This is that, but with graphics and also mixes in Kingdoms elements. This is a compelling but niche game, so it won't be for everyone. But the Bonfire is basically a slow clicker management game. At first there's only you, and you send yourself out to get wood. Eventually you build a bonfire and it attracts more people to join you. Then you need to gather food to feed your people while you give them jobs like woodsman, farmer, or guard. You need that wood to make new buildings like the farm and torches for your guards, because bad things come at night. You fight the monsters, but guards will be needed very soon. Each day you'll gain more people, and sometimes have travelers come with trade or requests. Weather does also become a factor, with colder weather making your villagers slower and less effective. You can also eventually make equipment to improve your villagers in their functions, so it's very helpful to just keep abreast of what's going on at all times in your game, because there's going to be a lot going on as things go forward. Because with more people comes more need of food, but faster production, so you can make a forge and eventually expand and start mining iron as well, and get more food for your people. There's a lot going on, there's a lot of parts moving around. But then there's the night times. With each night more monsters come, which will require more guards to fight them, so you gotta have a good army with your group, but also you want to have a lot of production, you want a lot of food. You're managing a lot of different plates in this game, while it just being kind of a slow clicker at the same time. It's interesting how it works out like that. The game does give you subtle warning signs of what's coming, like a comet or stars. It's weird, there's things in the sky that can show you that something's coming that's bigger than things from before. And these monsters, yeah, they get bigger, they get more vicious, and there's just more of them. And you're gonna have a heck of a time dealing with them. But it's pretty cool fighting them with your guards and everything, and just seeing what comes your way, and just trying to be prepared for it. But usually, you won't really know what's coming until you've experienced it the first time, which usually means you're going to have to do a couple more runs, because you're going to get killed the first couple times as you learn the game to be prepared for it. Because you could over-prepare, but then you have less people doing production during the day, which could hurt you in the long run. But the deeper you get into the game, the more complex it gets as your needs and requirements to progress increase. So I really like how this game goes with that. It's a huge time waster though, because it moves so slowly, even more so than like Kingdoms. And it certainly won't be for everyone, but I really like this game. I find it very compelling. It's just very interesting to me, but it does take a chunk of your time. So it's something to do when you have time to waste. It's just a really good wind-down game because it's so slow and compelling, and the music's just... There's not a lot of music there, it's just the sounds of the world, really. It's more calming. There is kind of a tune, but it's not really much going on. Still, the price is a bit much for what it is. It's a $10 game. If you have money, go for it, but if you don't, but you're still kind of interested, then definitely wait for a sale. I think this would have been perfect at a $5 price, since it doesn't offer a lot, while at the same time offering a lot. It's weird. It's very weird what it is. It's very minimalistic, but it's also very interesting as mechanics. So maybe it is good at 10, but from the outlook, it's definitely a good 5, but if you get deep into it, maybe you'd think it was a good 10. It's weird sometimes with prices, and definitely with this one. Somewhere in the middle maybe would have been good as well. Abandoned Ship is a $20 game in early access by Fireblade Studios. This game will increase in price on release, so keep that in mind, but it's going to be about 9 to 12 months before it comes out. Abandoned Ship is basically FTL, but with sea combat instead. Like, they use all the mechanics from FTL and change it here and there for more sea combat worthiness. It's not the same developer, by the way, if you're wondering on that part. If you are familiar with FTL, then lots of mechanics will feel very familiar. It's just, everything about it just will remind you of FTL if you've played that. Now, if you haven't played it, we're going to be talking about it as if you haven't played FTL, though, so there's that. Now, in this game, you are being hunted by a cult who has just summoned an eldritch monster called the Father. Your goal is to go from one C-map node to another as you progress towards quest nodes to escape the cult and ultimately find a way to turn around and defeat the cult itself. Each node is a C-map for you to travel across. As you travel, you'll find docks to trade, repair, and recruit from, and find various event markers across the map to interact with. Now, the maps have gates at north, south, east, and west. Sometimes they won't be at some locations, but for the majority, you're usually going to find 2 ways to go, and you cannot go past these gates until you've done enough event markers. The reason for this is just so you can't just skip to nodes trying to get to the quest, so that you have to do stuff, you have to take risks and gains to get through to the next area, instead of just skipping around, basically. These event markers can be pirates to fight, fellow ships to trade or rob, looting opportunities, chance events, or cult fights, which can be used, if won, to make the cult back off you. Because what happens in this game is, the cult is chasing you constantly, so this is your main antagonizing force, just like an FTL had a main antagonizing force. As you spend time on a map, as you do things on a map, the cult will get closer to finding you, and once they do, 3 possible encounters will follow. You either have to fight a cult ship, or you'll be boarded by sea monsters, or you have to face the Kraken. And each one has different things you have to do to deal with them. At the docks, you can hire crew with varying stats, buy a new ship, or improve your current one with weapons and upgrades. Something to keep in mind as well is, the more your characters do something, they get higher levels and stats in that. So, if you do a lot of cannon fire, they'll get better with that, so you want to keep using the same people with the same thing constantly, so they're just getting better at that. Now, ship combat is fun and interesting. Ships have a helm, cannons, a mast, a first aid station, and lots of add-ons you can find or trade for. All these different parts can be damaged and will have lower function when damaged or no function when heavily damaged. In combat, you need someone at the helm to move between the 4 distances of sea combat, you need your mast intact to quickly maneuver in the sea, and you need people manning the cannons to shoot at the enemy ship. There's also other weapons like a chain shot or a grape shot. There's also a mortar you can also buy in the game as well. And so, when they take damage and they get incapacitated, you have to repair them actively to make sure they keep working, or else you're just going to be dead in the water. Now, the thing is, you have, like I said, the cannons, the chain shot, and the grape shot, and the mortar. Each one has different functions they can do depending on what kind of weapons you buy them as. Like, let's just talk about the cannons alone. Cannons are your all-around damage. They do hull damage and crew damage. Chain shots are damaging the enemy mast, specifically just that, and grape shots are specifically done to damage the enemy crew. Most weapons work at all distances, but grape shot is only good at the closer to distances, and then the mortar has like a delayed shot before it lands and does damage, and the enemy ship could maneuver back and forth so it doesn't get hit by the mortar, so that's something to keep in mind. The varying versions of everything, like say the cannon, you can have a version that does way more crew damage, you can have a version that does fire damage instead, or does a lot of hull damage but doesn't really hurt the enemy crew. Same thing goes for the mortar, there's versions of that as well. And so those are just things you can have. So you can have a more specialized setup for your ship. Now, what's interesting is in FTL, it was you could do hull damage, fire damage, and you could put holes in the ship to cause a vacuum. In this one, it's the same thing, but a little different in that you have hull damage, fire damage, and you can cause holes to make the ship fill with water. So you also have to manage water holes so that you don't just get submerged by that way and getting killed that way. So there's a lot of different ways you can get killed. There's also, of course, getting boarded or doing the boarding yourself. You can get up close to the enemy ship, and you can do ramming speed to hurt the enemy ship and yours. But this gives you a chance of knocking people off of their ship, also off of your ship as well, so you got to keep in mind with that risk. But when they get knocked off, they have to have someone get to a winch to pull them back up into the water, just like your crew if someone gets knocked off of your ship. So that gives them less people on their ship for what your boarding party to fight and kill, and then you end up getting the ship, and you can loot it for more. So you can shoot the ship down and kill everyone on there, not risking getting hurt in that way, especially if they have a stronger crew. But what happens there is because the ship's sunk, you can't salvage as much. But if you kill everyone on the ship, it's intact, you can salvage it a lot more. And sometimes there's bonuses to doing that. Also, when it comes to crew members, if they're out in the water and you don't winch them back up, they'll drown. Also, your crew don't instantly die when defeated in hand-to-hand combat. They'll fall to the ground. You have some time to revive them. If you don't revive them fast enough, then they will die. So you got to keep that in mind. There are add-ons you can get, like an automatic winch to pull people out of the water. You can get harpoons that you can use at closer range to hit the enemy ship and keep them in place so that you can get closer so they can't move away if you prefer closer combat. And it's just really fun playing this style of combat. There is a lot of fun to it, but there's one imperfection that is not the best, and that is combat is at a 3/4 camera angle, and sometimes your characters will overlap, and this can get infuriating because then you can't click on the right person at times, and then you don't do the thing you want to do, which is unfortunate, but hopefully they'll figure that out and fix that later. But just like FTL, you can pause at any point during combat so that you can pick what you want and do the things you want to do, though it is more fun to do things in real time. The main story of this game is intended to be 7 to 10 hours long. There will be a separate combat-focused mode as well. When the game hits release, we may do a one-shot on it, considering just how much there is to it, and it is pretty fun. The $20 price tag, it feels really good for where it is. I don't know how high they're going to put it up when it hits release, but I think 20 is pretty good. 25 might be good, 30 I think is pushing it, but I like it at that price point. But we'll see where it is in the future. So that right there is the second rapid fire. Let me know what you think of this content, how you think it can be done better. That is for sure going to be very helpful. Now, reiterating some things, Seedstock I think is perfect where it is. $4 game, it's got a lot of content to it, it's a simple concept, it's pretty fun physics-based stuff, and the fact that it's going to be on Android and iOS is just perfect. I think that is going to be exactly where it should be. That is a great game for what it is. The Bonfire, I am mixed on it. I like it, I'm compelled by it, but it's not something for everyone, as I've said before, and maybe it won't be for people. I think it might be a solid sale game, though. Which is, it's not a good thing to say, but it does feel like it should be at a lower price point, in my opinion. Abandoned Ship, on the other hand, is again that's going to be in the shadow of FTL because it's so much FTL. I am curious what it's going to be when it hits release, and how they're going to develop the game. I have faith. This one looks like they put in a lot of work. I don't think they're going to just shortchange it. I think they're going to put in just to make it a good game, and we'll see how it is down the line. But there you go. That right there is the rapid fire, the second one. We'll see when the third one comes out. I think I'm doing this in just like 3 or 4. Whenever I find 3 or 4 good games worthwhile, in recent time, within like a month, that's when these rapid fires are going to happen. I try to do them every week if I can get that many games. But it also depends on what comes out. Unfortunately, there's a lot of really bad games coming out. That's unfortunate. But there's also some good ones coming out as well, and when we find them, we'll put them out there. So there you go, that right there is the rapid fire. I had fun talking with you for watching and listening, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? Having fun. Thanks for coming by, and see you next time.